Welcome to the Reimagine podcast. Each week, give yourself 30 minutes and meet the people working hard to create the future of insurance today.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the NASA Reimagine podcast. We have a special post ITC Vegas wrap-up episode today where we're joined by Susan Winkler, Vice President of CT IFS and Executive Director. So Susan has been on this show and that annuity show a number of times. She is not new to us, but to the listeners who have not yet heard from Susan, we'll dive into exactly her amazing history here and then the work that she's actively doing. But before we get there, I'm going to shine a little bit of light on ITC. So InsureTech Connect is a conference down in Las Vegas. Some people relate it to the Super Bowl of InsureTech. So it's with about 10,000 of our closest friends where we get together for content 2 or 3 days, sometimes even longer than that, some pre-events, some post-events, even some hikes out into the national parks where individuals who are curious around technology and insurance really gather and talk about the future of what's taking place, not only in the upcoming, but in the current state today. So as we dive deeper, we're going to be talking about the business of innovation from Vegas to Hartford and translating the ITC momentum into action. So with that, Susan, welcome back. Introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about the work that your organization does.
Well, thank you, Laura. It's always a pleasure to be on the podcast. And specifically, we work together a lot and often. And it's a nice opportunity for me to explain the relationship that CT IFS has with not only the local insurers and companies that make up the insurance capital of the world, of the Galactica, or of the universe, as we call it now. But I'd like to expand on that a little bit more. So CT IFS, and welcome. Thank you again for having me. Excited to talk to your viewers and listeners today. So CT IFS is a very unique organization. We are, for lack of a better word, a business association of 23 insurance and financial service companies and service providers. The makeup is property casualty, life, retirement, healthcare, and service providers. But while we're talking a little bit about what we do, we gather together quarterly. We've been gathering as a board for 20 plus years to say, how are we going to advance the industry? What are those triggers? What are those things that we need to do collectively as an industry to grow economically and to grow jobs in the state of Connecticut? And so that's kind of the impetus. And then, of course, we looked at ITC as what are those vehicles? As you said, Laura, it's a Super Bowl, it's exhausting, but there's no way to measure. Well, there's ways to measure, but there's no ways to really quantify how many conversations, right, we had, how many footsteps and steps we walked, the newness of the companies, the newness of the conversations, the products. You jump into this conference as an insurer and you're looking for the newest technologies that are enabling, that are emerging, whether it's underwriting, claims, customer experience, you're looking for that solution and right there you can find it, with the 10,000 people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about things that are emerging, things that are being enabled, and with our 10,000 closest friends. Could you share for the listeners one or two things that you either learned or saw that was either surprising or inspiring or anything of the sort?
Yeah, I do have one that comes to mind, Laura, that inside the ITC. So you think about, okay, a conference has the expo floor. You're walking around with all the vendors and they're selling their products. But inside the conference also are these very curated executive leadership series. And you walk in and you're there to learn from a certain company and they're giving you their top executives to talk about certain technologies and applications and networks in the current environment. And one particular scenario, I believe it was Cognizant. You might have been there too, Laura. Their executive leadership took us into AI, which of course everybody's talking about AI, but they really actually showcased a AI avatar that they developed last year. So now we're talking 1 year ago. This avatar, where she is today and how she used AI, which was just evolving last year, how she evolved as a human being, virtually, and how her company technically evolved in a year, how AI moved with her to grow with her risks and her opportunities. So as you develop personally, as you develop professionally, you're growing in both those capacities and your risk and opportunity. And they were able to show us virtually how she evolved and how AI and what her, let's say, insurance solutions, because we were at a InsureTech conference, were now different from 1 year ago and how they evolved with her and her insurance solutions evolved with her 1 year later. And it was all done. It was all done, instantaneously. It was all done with AI and it was saving her time and money. And it was just a way that we could adapt and adopt those things too. So I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that session, Cognizant put on with Stephanie Wan, and it was
Yeah,
interesting because all about it went further than the agentic agent, right? It was
it
about the
did.
agentic web journey, and they
Yes,
were estimating that, up to 30% of commerce could be seen within the agentic web within the next 2 years, right? So if we keep on track, with the evolution that we have thus far, I'm pretty excited for it. I think that we have to remain aware of certain things that could happen, right? Yesterday, there was a massive AWS outage, which took down everything from daycare apps to cash registers in our own cafeteria and things in
yes,
between. So technology,
everything. Yeah.
everything. There was a lot impacted across the business space, and I think that that's just a reminder of the more we are infused within these digital spaces, and the more that we become dependent on those things, it's just another level of awareness in our decision making
Yeah,
process.
you got it though, Lord. The risk is amplified. And so with that, there's no now new opportunities for moving quicker, faster, better, but there's now opportunities for bad actors and issues to come in. And that's why insurers are taking this technology and AI very seriously, because one thing about insurance is that it is consumer facing. It is your protection. It is your guarantee. And the insurance industry takes that very seriously. So AI is moving fast. Insurers know and financial services companies know they have to keep up, but they're also taking very, very cautious steps because they protect the consumers as their first priority.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, trust, this industry is built on trust. So being able to move forward in a way that's safe and things are being thought about. So speaking of trust, let's talk about partnerships, because partnerships are a big part of the work that you do and a big part of the work that enables this industry to continue to move forward. So tell us a little bit about some of the partnerships, that CT IFS has, and maybe some of the folks that you saw down in Vegas.
Yes, thank you. Well, of course, the CTIFS board has tentacles that are global, and our local community is very important. So the board of directors, as I said, is comprised of businesses, but yet our partnerships are with academia. So big shout out to our friends at UConn with the Masters of FinTech. We work with other universities inside Connecticut and Hartford specifically to help grow our talent. We put an actuarial boot camp together again. Nassau Financial was our host last year, and we're constantly building talent through community partnerships. So that's one example. Other things we do are just whether it's through foundations and the work that insurance do, there's an incredible amount of money and time that our IFS industry gives back to the community. Countless charitable organizations and countless hours, the volunteer hours that the company. So you talk about trust, you talk about empathy, and you talk about who makes up IFS, a number, right? What is that number? Okay, 110,000 people. Well, what does that mean? And who are they? But when you get down to the economic impact and the economic impact is where they come in and support over 20% of the GDP, but yet the ancillary support that they give is really important to the IFS industry. So CTIFS helps build that. That is what we do as a board of directors. And then again, as each board member and their employees and colleagues that are behind them, that's what we do. Grow the industry in every way we can. But technology is at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, a few things that stood out from ITC is it's as much about technology as it about people. And you talk about the industry, and there's been discussions within events CT IFS has hosted, that John Wilson, Larissa Burke has hosted, et cetera, that talk about talent and upcoming talent. And you mentioned actuarial boot camp. Can you share with us a little bit about how CT IFS and some of the board member organizations are working around and having discussions about the upcoming talent, specifically for the insurance and financial services area?
Yeah, and I can't speak too much in depth, so maybe you'll have to have me on another podcast in the first quarter of next year because the board of directors has decided that their December meeting, we are going to talk about that exact thing. And it really is how AI is impacting the next gen of workforce. Getting ahead of it, what is it, and then put a put a plan behind it to say how are we going to either use that AI as a launch pad, as a building block for our next gen, or are we going to get ahead of the fact that we are going to be losing some positions? How do we now make up the new gen worker? So I'll have more to talk to you about at the next podcast, but I can tell you that that is a priority for the board.
That's great. And I know another key partnership and opportunity you've been working through the last few years here is the InsureTech Corridor with the UK. Can you share a bit about that partnership and the impact that it brings here to Connecticut?
The InsureTech Corridor is a international agreement with the UK. So the formal name of it is the Connecticut UK InsureTech Corridor. What that is a seamless way. First of all, let me take a step back. It was you've got two centers of insurance, population and concentration of workforce, and activity and productivity, London and Hartford. So in 2022, there was a consensus to build a bridge between the two and the two centers to have insurtech specifically and fintech business be able to flow smoothly, efficiently, effectively between the two jurisdictions so both can grow economically. So that would mean in more in more specificity, insurtechs from the UK have a way to come to the US for expansion, land here in Hartford. We have the resources and the landing pad for them to bring their business into the US by virtue of Hartford and vice versa. So we're taking the rest of the startup community that's US based that wants to expand into Europe via the UK. And that is what the InsureTech Corridor is. It's been running for 3 years. We have 18 companies that have pledged to be part of that ecosystem. And we have some that have now made the commitment to open their US HQs in Hartford. So it's all good. Plus, again, the benefit, Laura, is that is part of the benefit that physically the capital investment is made here in Hartford for those employees and real estate. The real win is for the insurance companies and the communities and the consumers to gain the knowledge and the technologies that are behind those companies. Because that's really who benefits is the consumer ultimately.
I love it. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. No pressure. We're not going to vote you off of an island.
So
So if, let's pretend we're back on the
and I
floor at
know we do
ITC.
that. And I know we do that. So we have
We do. If you met a founder right now at ITC, whether they're US based, UK based,
yes.
and they're listening, what's the why Hartford, why now pitch
Oh,
in 30 seconds or less?
okay. We are trying to summarize in the best possible way because there's so many analogies I can use, but I don't want to use them small but mighty, but with many oars. But the fact that we are so connected, I guess that's the word I'll use. We are connected. There are other places that you might choose, but there's nowhere where you have one call, one stop, one entity, CTIFS, who can connect you to anything that you need relative to your technology. So you need a life insurer. We've got that. How about a regulator? What kind of product do you have and how should it be licensed in the US? We have the chief regulator behind us on this as well, signed on a signatory. He's a signatory for the InsureTech Corridor. He can give regulatory advice. We have our institutions, our academic institutions, such as our friends at UConn and others. They stand ready. So you have the business community, the public officials, and the regulatory environment, the academic environment, of the real estate community. We work with the Metro Hartford Alliance. We can give you the data analysis that makes it gives you all the variables and all the costs of what you should expect if you're coming to the US. So really, I guess if I had to give, it's one call, but the breadth of connections that you get from that is you can't find it anywhere else because there are bigger communities and people like to look at those larger metropolitan areas as a place to be, but you're lost. You're not one phone call away to a regulator. You're not one phone call away to a chief executive at an insurance company, and you can only get that here. So
I love it.
that's my heart sell.
I love it. And it's important too, right? Because we get the question a lot, and we play in jest between other places that like to call themselves insurance capitals, other places that we're located near. It's a question we get a lot: is why Hartford? So that I think helps sum it up very well. If one phone call state connectivity, shared instincts, shared wins. So rewinding and fast forwarding all at the same time, putting us into hyperdrive, bringing us back to Vegas. We heard a lot of conversations, and this is something that I like to play. I didn't bring a bingo card this time, although I have a friend out there who we were talking about we should probably print one for next year. In the world of InsureTech, and specifically ITC or not, your call. Is there a buzzword floating around right now that you would like to retire? I'll tell you mine. Disruption. We need to retire it. What's
Yeah,
yours?
you know what? I don't think they hear it as much though. So I think your word is out. They're
Good.
starting
I
to
hope so.
stop it. Um, Gosh, I'd love to stop saying AI, but we can't. There's no way. It's too in. It's now become a common thread. So you
Do
can't
you
really.
Do you think AI is gonna become in the same way when the internet was being launched and it was Y2K and we all, packaged up with our extra canned goods and we weren't sure what was gonna happen when that clock changed and the date changed? I have hopes for our society that in the same way where we keep saying AI, right, and there's so much conversation driven around it, rightfully so, that it may become the internet one day and that it just is.
I think.
Um,
Yeah, no, that's why I said it's the thread. There's as much as I don't want another seminar or another webinar or another technology that's AI driven.
right, right,
I think it's going to be part of everything we work. As a matter of fact, it'll become so much part of our life that we won't talk about it anymore as a
right,
thing, right?
right.
We won't think about it. It'll just be. So we won't have to keep saying it. We won't have to go to a webinar. We won't have to have a discussion. It won't be a disruptor.
Yeah.
It'll just be. It'd be nice. But I think that's where we're headed if I had to guess. But as I said earlier, the one thing that does is just allow risk and opportunity to be more forefront. So that is where, if you really want to succeed, you've got to get a real keen understanding of those in your business. And once you get those, then you can insure that risk, push the opportunity, and then you'll be successful. But those two things have to take place.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some terminology that's floating around, safe speed of learning. So
Yeah.
learning quickly, but learning safely. What does it mean? There's been a few more things instead of human in the loop, it's human on the hook.
Yeah.
Humans are in the loop with AI, however, they're on the hook. So even if AI is creating it or they're creating it in partnership, if the human hands it in or claims it as theirs, they have to be on the hook for it. So I think as we continue to integrate AI into just what we're doing and what we are, we'll have more of these next turns of phrases that we may look to either add to bingo cards or to, sunset at some point. But I'm excited for the evolution of the conversation, the evolution of the software, of the evolution of the solutions that are going to get us to the point of what's next because it's a powerful tool and we're using it here at NASA in a number of ways. We have a few POCs running and we're seeing it, from the likes of productivity increase to just thinking differently and the spirit of experimentation and the openness and the willingness for all people to just dive in and have fun. Start using it, use it safely, use it at a speed that makes sense. But once you're there within the guardrails, explore it. Make sure that you have the opportunity to utilize technology to take some of that daily churn off your plate if it's possible, and then use your humanness to focus on either creativity or work that a machine can't replace for you. I mean, that's something that we've heard others say at the conference and elsewhere. But for me, that's just one of the key takeaways that I brought back and shared in a discussion yesterday that helped open eyes one person in particular, they were not keen on using AI, and that's okay. But after the discussion, after we went through some kind of the hands-on examples, they're very much excited about having that next discussion of how can they use AI. So I think the more people learn, the more the world will continue to expand.
And we had, just as an example, the actuarial boot camp that NASA hosted this year. So these are high school students, fresh coming in, like, do I want to be an actuary? What is it? And of course, AI is one of the key parts of the discussion that week long. It's one module. But the point we were trying to make in that, guys, was exactly what you said, Laura, that AI is now going to be used, but you're going to be on the hook. You may be able to use the AI to use it through the math, through the equation, through the probability, right? And determine pretty quickly and assessing that risk pretty quickly now. But you're still going to have to take your analysis and move it to the next person who's typically above you. So you better be able to defend that as a human. So that's a real example of now running into a talent pipeline issue where, yes, we're still building actuaries, they're still critical for the infrastructure, but their role has shifted. So before they were math geeks, just doing one probability assignment after another, right? And now they can do that in a split second with AI. So now their role has completely shifted to say, okay, you go take care of that probability assignment. Let us know what that risk assessment is, but now defend it. And defend it like like your job is dependent on it, because it is. So that's where I think that some of this is now going to play out a little, as I alluded to earlier with the meeting in December. We have to define our next gen employee differently. What kind of critical thinking are we looking for? What kind of communication skills are we looking for? So, because everything technological is going to be done. And now you have a human, a young person. How do you cultivate them and build them so they have the skills, the confidence to take that piece of paper that now they were able to put together pretty darn quickly, but how can they defend that or rationalize it, support it, and sell it? So it's going to be very interesting.
We're getting towards top of time here. So, in staying with our ITC theme,
Okay.
if we're successful acting on the ITC momentum, what headline do you want to read about Connecticut or CT IFS or our cluster 6 months from now?
I'd like to see more technology companies contracted with our insurance financial service companies. That may not be very visible because those things are somewhat proprietary. But what I'd like to see that is more overt is we have now connected with quite a few companies. Some of them, again, part of the InsureTech Corridor, but new to us. But there are other new technologies that we are connecting with that want to be involved with the Hartford, Connecticut insurance capital of the world ecosystem. My metric would be in 6 months. We're having multiple webinars featuring those companies. And so our insurance company, our IFS industry, are taking a look at them and making some decisions on whether they want to hire them. And then we're moving the dial and moving forward on the industry.
I like it. Future talent is definitely a today conversation, and we're going to be excited to welcome you back after your December board meeting. So with that, this wraps up our ITC Vegas recap with Susan Winkler from CT IFS. What a week it was. From new partnerships to global visibility for Connecticut's innovation community, it's clear that the region continues to punch above its weight on the world stage. So, Susan, a big thank you to you and the CT IFS Board of Directors for continuing to champion Connecticut's insurance and fintech ecosystem, and to everyone who helped make Connecticut's presence in Vegas a success. So if you've enjoyed listening to this episode, be sure to follow the NASA Reimagined podcast wherever you listen, and stay connected with us on LinkedIn for more conversations at the intersection of innovation, insurance, and community. Until next time, I'm Laura Dinan Haber. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information about this company and other great startups at imagine.nfg.com.